Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to completely transform the way you think about writing. Seriously, we're stepping away from the idea of essay writing as this mysterious, magical art form, and instead we're looking at it as an architectural science. We're going to dive deep into what I call the architectural blueprint method for building structurally sound essays. Honestly, if you've ever sat there suffering from blank page syndrome, just completely stuck, this is your cure. Today is all about mastering the structural bookends of your essay, the introduction and the conclusion.
Because we've absolutely all been there, right? You're staring at that glowing blank screen, watching the cursor blink rhythmically, kind of feels like it's mocking you after a while. And you're just wondering, why on earth is the very first sentence always the hardest thing to write? It's such a universal pain point. We waste literally hours just trying to get the engine started. But here's the thing. What if I told you that you don't actually need a stroke of absolute genius to start an essay? You don't. You just need a formula. And today, I'm going to give you a concrete, step-by-step structural formula that completely solves this problem for good.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap for today's Explainer. We've got 4 stops. 1. The anatomy of an introduction. 2. The general to specific funnel. 3. Mastering the thesis. And 4. Crafting the perfect conclusion. Starting right off with Section 1, the anatomy of an introduction.
Think of your introductory paragraph as the front doorway of a building. It's got one main job, to be super inviting and to smoothly guide your reader from the chaotic outside world right into the specific, neat little structure you've built. Well, to build that doorway properly, your introduction has to accomplish 4 precise, mandatory jobs. Memorize these, and you'll seriously never struggle to start an essay again. Number 1, you've got to introduce the topic. Obviously, right? Number 2, you need to give a general background on that topic. Number 3, specify your overall plan for the essay. And number 4, arouse the reader's interest. That's it. Introduce, background, plan, and interest. Those are your core architectural requirements.
Moving right along to Section 2, the general to specific funnel. Okay, so now we have our 4 requirements, but we can't just toss them in a blender and hope for the best. An introduction is essentially shaped like a funnel. You want to start wide at the top with a broad general statement about the subject just to grab their attention. Then, sentence by sentence, you narrow it down, feeding in that background info until you reach the very bottom. And at the absolute narrowest point of that funnel, boom, that's your specific point, your thesis. Let's actually test this out with a quick interactive workshop. Imagine we've got some jumbled sentences about traffic in Lahore, and we need to find that correct funnel order. So, what would be the widest, most general statement? It's the one that simply states the overall issue. One of the most serious problems that Lahore faces is traffic congestion. Start big. From there, we funnel down a bit to the specific causes. The thousands of cars and buses on the road. Then we narrow it even further to say, hey, this problem actually must be solved. And finally, sitting at the very bottom, we hit the thesis, the exact, highly specific solution of building overpasses in transit systems. See how that works? General problem, down to specific causes, right down to the exact solution.
Let's do a second quick puzzle with some earthquake sentences, just to really lock this concept in. Again, we start incredibly wide. The most general statement here is the broad tragedy of the event itself. Earthquakes are the most catastrophic of natural disasters. Then we narrow it down to the background context. Scientists have tried to predict them but have largely failed, despite new advancements. And then, the bottom of the funnel, the most specific sentence of the whole paragraph. This paper will examine the history of the science of earthquake prediction, discuss methods, and present data. See how smoothly that brings you in from the outside world directly into the exact data the paper is going to show you?
Which brings us nicely to Section 3, Mastering the Thesis Statement.
Now, if the introduction is your inviting doorway, the thesis statement is absolutely the primary load-bearing pillar of your entire essay. It's the single most important sentence, and structurally, it almost always sits at the very end of your intro, right at the tip of that funnel we just talked about. You can actually break a perfect thesis down into raw data. It states the main topic, and it lists the exact subtopics. Let's look at an example regarding capital punishment. And look, regardless of any personal or political viewpoints here, strictly as a masterclass in structural grammar, this is brilliant. The main topic is crystal clear. The subtopics, that it deprives life and doesn't actually stop crime, are explicitly laid out. But the real magic? It's in the signal words, not only and but also. These words perfectly tee up those subtopics so the reader knows exactly what's coming.
These signal words are totally vital.
I want you to think of simple punctuation marks or conjunctions as grammatical hinges. They literally hold the thesis and its subtopics together. You might use a colon, saying a topic is important, for 2 reasons, and then just list them. Or you might use a simple word like because. Or you might go for that parallel structure we just saw, not only, but also. These hinges signal the reader and tell them exactly what to expect in the body paragraphs that follow.
And this brilliantly illustrates another total superpower of the thesis statement. It actually acts as a hidden blueprint for how you organize your essay. If your thesis mentions moving from pre-independence to post-independence, it instantly signals a chronological organization. The reader unconsciously knows, okay, I'm getting a timeline. Conversely, if your thesis states that women's status in Pakistan is improving but still low when compared to the West, well, that signals a comparison and contrast structure. The thesis doesn't just tell the reader what you're writing about, it tells them exactly how you're going to write about it.
Finally, we reach section 4, crafting the perfect conclusion. So you've built this great essay, but you can't just leave it open to the elements, right? The conclusion gracefully puts the roof on your structure. It tells the reader, hey, the building is complete. But here is the absolute most crucial point. You cannot just lazily copy and paste your introduction. Don't do it. There are 3 strict rules for the conclusion formula. First, you provide a summary of the main points. Or, rule 2, you do a restatement of the thesis in different words. Really notice that different words part, that's key. And finally, rule number 3, you must leave the reader with a strong final comment or personal opinion. It is literally your last opportunity to leave a lasting impression. Let's see this formula in action by comparing an introduction with its exact conclusion counterpart. Let's say we have an intro for an essay about the 20th century, and it uses phrases like high standard of living, pollution, and weakening of human relationships. Pretty standard. But in contrast, the conclusion beautifully restates those exact same ideas using entirely fresh vocabulary. So instead of high standard of living, it says we're more moneyed and healthier. Instead of pollution, it simply says the earth is dirtier. Instead of weakening relationships, it calls people less humane. It is the exact same architectural support, you've just painted it a fresh new color.
Now, remember that 3rd rule of the conclusion, the strong final comment? Take a look at this quote derived from a model essay on modern stress. After the author spends the essay summarizing physical disorders and remedies like taking walks, they deliver this punchy, personal takeaway right at the end. In my opinion, to control stress, we need to cultivate cheerfulness for our own sake. See what that does? It elevates the whole paragraph from just a boring summary into a really memorable piece of advice. It puts a definitive, stylish roof on the entire essay.
So let's wrap up our own explainer today with one final, slightly provocative thought from that 20th century model essay we looked at. The writer leaves us with this. In a world which is increasingly becoming more and more impersonal and mechanized, we should try to build relationships. I absolutely love that. And I actually want to challenge you with something similar today. The next time you sit down to write, please don't just type blindly. Apply this architectural precision. Build your funnel, hinge your subtopics, roof it with fresh vocabulary and a powerful final thought. If you master the blueprint, you'll for sure master the essay. But here's the real question I want you to ask yourself the next time you're staring at a blank page. Are you just going to keep throwing down random bricks, or are you finally ready to be the architect of your own ideas? Thanks so much for joining me today.